physician living in Massachusetts since 1990. He's originally from Washington, D.C. Went to Haverford, College. The Jacobs Buffalo School of Biomedical Sciences. He trained in Oakland, California and Springfield, Mass. He was a senior physician at the Monson Medical Center in Monson, Mass, where his primary care panel size was in the top tier of the big state health services system. Previously, he provided care in California and on Cape Cod. The patient is the boss, quote unquote, is his driving medical philosophy. He strives to use his medical training, 35 years of experience, and ongoing medical education to make the most accurate diagnoses, achievable recommendations and treatment plans, with a long-standing ethic of alleviating suffering and walking the path along with the patient when cure is not possible. Primum non nocere, first do no harm, and the preservation of life are central tenets. With that, Dr. Dix, thank you.
Good evening. I'm so glad we had this time together, she said. I was about to pull my ear. Carol Burnett, for those. I am going to try to talk for about 10 to 12 minutes and then get off the stage and we can ask questions over there, and that means that I have to cut off about 3/4 of what I was going to say. But they say a microphone's a terrible thing to waste, so I'm not going to waste it. I think the most important thing that you can do is learn how to argue. Or maybe I should say learn how to make arguments. We are not battling our enemies, we are battling our opponents. And there's a big difference. You watch a football game, people try to take each other's heads off, and they shake hands at the end of the game. The Christians go to the middle of the field on opposite teams, kneel down and pray. You see boxers try to literally take each other's heads off, and before it's over, they usually hug in the middle of the ring. Unless it's girls fighting, they never hug. Ronda Rousey breaking people's arms, they didn't like that. So I want to tell you how to argue. That's what I'm going to talk about. And I think the main thing you want to do is identify those people who are open to hearing the truth. There are some people who are not open to hearing the truth. And the reason this is important is because everything where our children are under attack, whether it's masking or whether it's the way of teaching, is brought about with a central lie. There is always a lie in there. And if a person is interested in defending a lie, then they're not going to listen to you. This is my evidence for making this broad sweeping conclusion. In the Bible, there's a Proverbs book 26, there's a verse that says, "Answer not a fool." In the very next verse, it says, "Answer a fool." Now, some people might think the Bible is contradictory because it has both of those things, but the point is that you have to have the discernment to decide who is worth your argument. Okay? This is where the phrase comes from that you don't cast your pearls amongst the swine. If somebody's not interested in truth, don't waste your time with them. But I can tell you this, there's a lot of people you're talking to who are your opponents who do want the truth and they're simply deceived. So what I want you to do is to focus on if the person is interested in hearing the truth. And it's relatively easy to find out. And I'm going to use the example of the whole transgender craze that's going around to try to prove this to you. One comedian said, in the very first year after having his so-called gender transition surgery, Caitlyn Jenner won Woman of the Year without even having one period. Were you not insulted? Woman of the Year? Okay, well, what is the point here? The point here is that that happened years ago. You had tennis player, male, pretending to be female. You had weightlifter, male, pretending to be female. Then you had a long-distance bicyclist, male, pretending to be female, and winning, by the way. Then you had Leah Thomas. People on Leah Thomas' own team did not want him swimming with them. People on other teams did not want him swimming with them. And finally, you're starting to see people who are interested in seeing the truth. You would find complete pushback, cries of bigotry for anyone who said anything about Caitlyn Jenner being a man. So you have to find people who are interested in hearing the truth. And when you do, you don't move off your primary point until they either agree with you or refute you or give up and walk out the room. And I'm very happy for people to give up and walk out the room. I have no problem with that. Because what happens is you plant a seed. And even from the scriptural point of view, it says, one plants, one waters, and God gives the increase. You don't have to convince somebody. Say the truth, and the truth will start to resonate with them. You don't have to be angry. You don't have to be mad. And the very biggest thing I don't want you to do is to shut up. You have to keep talking. Okay? Even from a scriptural point of view, you can talk about the fact, how can one become converted unless they hear the gospel? You have to talk. You cannot be quiet. You don't have to be mad. Let them lose their minds. You don't have to lose your mind because you're grounded in the truth. Ephesians chapter 6, one of the primary weapons, one of the primary things you have for armor is the belt of truth. The belt organizes things. It gives you something to go back to. It girds up your loins so you can run if you're in a battle. And believe it or not, yes, you are in a battle right now. So you have to hold on to the truth, because the truth is what sets people free. And if you're having an opponent and not an enemy, you want your opponent to be set free. If you have an enemy, you want to kill him. Okay? But if you have an opponent, which we'll just use the term Democrats are, you want to set them free. People said, first of all, I should tell you, I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent, and there's a very good reasons for that, and because I'm not happy with the Republican Party, frankly, and I know this is a Republican meeting. I'm just telling you this to tell you I'm not being partisan about this. I'm telling you what I see. Okay? So what I see is that when you find, where was I going with this? I forgot what I was going to say now. I'm sorry? Oh, they will defend these positions which they know are indefensible because they don't want the truth. You will hear time and time again that the reason that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election was because he was so divisive. This is the one point which I've heard even Republicans not firmly hold on to enough. In 2020, did Donald Trump get more votes or less votes than he did in 2016? More. So if that is true, it is clearly not his divisiveness that lost him the election. That's a topic for another day, but my point is, speaking the truth will divide. That's okay. Okay? So, I want to talk specifically about COVID briefly. What Dr. Berry said is absolutely true. There were months and months and months when there were no people under the age of 20 who died from COVID in Massachusetts. Even looking across the entire 2 years, the number of children who died is less than 1,000. Now, while any one death is a tragedy, one thing I can tell you as a doctor, and you don't need a doctor to tell you, is people die. No matter what you do, people die. Massachusetts is a magnet for sick children because of Children's Hospital. And if in this state, no children were dying for COVID, that ought to give you a hint about how serious a disease COVID is for most children. Okay? If that's the case, then who should be the last people that should be masked? Who should be the last people that should be approached with a vaccine? Why does it take 10 to 15 years to develop a vaccine? Because in a vaccine, the most important thing about it is safety. For a vaccine, the safety is more important than effectiveness. If you have cancer, 90% chance of killing you. Cancer drug, 10% chance of killing you. What do? You take the drug that's a 10% chance of killing you. On the other hand, if you're giving a vaccine, you're not giving it to someone with cancer, you're giving it to a healthy person. The most important thing of all is safety. Safety has not been proven. If it hasn't been proven, then it shouldn't be given. It's as simple as that. If it hasn't been proven, it shouldn't be given. So, why is it that FDA says we cannot release the Pfizer documents? It'll take 75 years because we can only release 500 pages a month. Okay? That is clear-cut evidence that something's being hidden. If something's being hidden, you got to ask questions. And if it's something really dangerous, missing a year of school, if you're in college and you can't go because of the mandates, It might be worth it. I still don't know. The truth of the matter is it's not known. But I can tell you, the people who have been on the forefront of questioning this whole thing, for example, Dr. Peter McCullough, is estimating that upwards of 100,000 people have died as a consequence of the shots. We are still using the term vaccine, which I shouldn't use, but it's been doing it for 30 years, it's hard to change it. These shots are a completely new technology. When they were developed back in 2004 with the first SARS, all the test animals died when they were retested. This is clear-cut evidence there's a problem with the technology. Next thing I want to talk about, here's my solution. I got a solution. I'm a doctor, I'm supposed to give them solutions. At least I'm going to give you an opinion. If you don't like it, get a second opinion. You have to face truth. The truth is people are male and female and nothing else. Whatever someone wants to do sexually, you have to start with that basic truth. And if the person you're talking to resists that, you're wasting your time. And that's one of those people where you say, answer not a fool. The absurdity is beyond question. And I'm not going to go into that anymore. So but this is my solution. Number one, you need to support black conservatives. First of all, if you want to talk about social constructs, race is a social construct. Gender is a biological fact. And I don't usually talk black and white, but in this country, I'm trying to speak the vernacular people understand. And the reason you need to support black conservatives, because they're pretty much the bravest people in the country. Because almost by definition, they're battling their entire family. That's just the reality. Number two, you need to treat your children the same way the old Jews taught their children. In Proverbs it says you teach your children as you go about the day. You don't have to have special teaching sessions. You notice something, you see something, they notice something, that's when you teach them. Okay? There are some very simple sources you can pursue that are helpful. Prager University online is good because they teach a subject in 5 minutes. They cover it in 5 minutes. Another good source, especially as regards health these days, is a site that Dr. McCullough's developed called America Out Loud. Okay? Another good source as regards sports, I would strongly recommend Jason Whitlock. Okay? So these things should not be simply for your enjoyment, they should be for spreading out to other people. Because people will make arguments that you can't make, you're too nervous, you don't know the facts. These people do research before they put their stuff online. Is there something else that was the other topics, critical race theory, same thing. There are answers to these things. Do not be embarrassed. You cannot do anything like people are telling you to do. You can't say that because you're a man. You can't say that because you're white. You can't say that because whatever. You have a brain, you have a mind, you can think, you can read, you can talk. You don't need me as an MD to tell you some of these things that you know already. So I'm here basically to encourage you to go after these solutions. And I'll be happy to answer any questions over there. Did I use up all my time?
No.
Oh, or somebody want to ask questions before we can do some of the more popular things. What I'd like, if you're going to ask a question that you really don't have the answer to. Yes?
You mentioned that the shot, the safety of the shot is questionable. And as far as making policy decisions, you would seriously not let your child go, or do we consider the vaccination requirements when you were making that decision? And do you see the vaccine requirements loosening up anytime soon?
I would never voluntarily have my child get any of these shots. If you live in a free free country, there should be no mandates. And what I'm saying is that if the mandate made me delay my child going to college, my child would delay going to college.
Will you be my doctor?
I do practice medicine outside Springfield. I do something called direct primary care. And part of the reason I do direct primary care is because doctors need the freedom to practice without insurance companies telling them what to do.
Well, you said, thank you, very good. You said about, supporting Black conservatives, you're absolutely right. Collaborative reaction with anything, we stick together, we're gonna win. We're gonna make America red, white, and blue, everything everybody's been proud of from day one. We have to stick together, we gotta care about one another, love one another, and continue to move forward.
I agree. Is that a question?
Well, my question was, would you be my doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
You talked very well about why are we masking toddlers?
Hello?
I can't imagine the mayor
What's up, Jeff?
of New York, they're still masking kids under a certain age. What is their rationale? I truly don't know why they're doing it.
Okay, well, I can tell you a few things. Number one, if you put up with the masking, the problem is yours. It's not the mayor of New York's problem. Okay? If I had children in that age school, I would have my children organize a mass, no wearing mask. That's what I would do. If you're free people, that's what you should do. The rationale is, as Dr. Berry pointed out, control. If you have people who are separated with each other, and there's no question that masking separates people, then the only person that's in control is the authority figure, which in this case is the mayor, okay? Or the government, whatever structure it is. That's one thing. And the proof of this is very simple. No one has produced a paper that shows that masks decrease the transmission of coronavirus or any other viral pandemic. That has not been shown. And so before you comply with this, they should show the proof, and they do not. And they cannot. Even when there is fraud in science, the fraud is not so deep that they can put out a paper that is peer-reviewed that supports masking as a way to prevent transmission of viral pandemics. And I'm getting the signal that I need to move, so thank you for your time and attention.